It is 6 p.m., so I will call this September 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Wenatchee School District School Board to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heard a lot of people do it in a while.
Yeah, that's great.
Esta junta se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español. Por favor, indique su necesidad. We will now work through the agenda. Are there any proposed changes or modifications to the agenda? None? Okay. Then we will begin with the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board's had an opportunity to review the material and individually ask the superintendent any questions on any item on the agenda. This week's consent agenda includes the minutes from the September 10th, 2024 regular meeting, the September 16th, 2024 special workshop meeting minutes, vouchers and payroll, personnel reports, surplus report, contracts, field trips, and the July financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second it. Been moved by Maria, seconded by Miranda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will now move on to citizen comment. If any member of the public would like to make a citizen's comment, we ask that you please sign up online 15 minutes before the meeting or in person. Paper forms are available at the entrance to the meeting room and can be completed and given to Board Secretary Kim White. Unless translation is required, each comment is limited to 3 minutes, and Ms. White will keep a timer to notify you when your time expires. Individuals that need translation services will be given 4 minutes to make a comment plus time needed to complete their interpretation. Please also be aware the board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during public comment, and the board's silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Kim, do we have anyone sign up for comments?
First, Stephanie Malloy.
My name is Stephanie Malloy. I am an M&O worker for Wenatchee School District. A step 5 custodian nets $2,800 a month, now minus rent of $2,000, electricity of $50, water $80, garbage $75, sewer $50, internet $60. Let's be conservative and say the phone bill is $60, car insurance $50, and a car payment of $200. That leaves $175 for food and other miscellaneous expenses. Be mindful that deductions are increasing because of the long-term deduction. And the State Office of the Insurance Commissioner announced that it approved a 10.7% increase in health insurance premiums. As you can see, we as workers are living in the red, so many full-time employees have to have another job to supplement their income. The workers who keep the school district running and students educated are struggling to feed their families. I was told recently that union members are lazy workers who don't want to work. I want to say that I bleed union blue. I've been given many titles: mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, friend, coworker, union member, leader, but never has anyone said that I was lazy and unwilling to work. Yet I am a union member. Your district workers are loyal and hardworking, so please consider them when the district comes back and asks you to approve the raises we're asking for. We don't want to break the school district, but also I feel that we should award our workers a fair wage. Jobs will come back, as we have found out by those jobs that were reconfigured recently, but wages will not. Don't send a message to the district employees that they are not important enough to take care of them. Don't say how much we appreciate us, but show us with action and give us an increase as we are able to feed our families and take care of our basic needs. Alone I stand here, and alone I may not make an impact, but together as a union, we stand strong. So please consider what I've said tonight and consider the workers who are showing up every day for the district and their families that they need to feed.
Can we please ask that you hold your applause for public comments? Thank you.
Next is Jake Quilter.
Good evening. Thank you to all those who have taken the time out of their day to be here and support the M&O Group. We appreciate you. And what an example of finding value in others and each other. We are here again tonight to share with the board the importance of taking care of the employees who keep the district functioning. We recently lost another good employee because they had not been taken care of and were being taken advantage of and wanted to do something different now. Lost my place on my paper. We are indeed in a financial crisis. I don't just mean a school district. I mean the employees who work day in, day out, not just 8 hours a day, but often 10 to 12 hours just to cover the basic functions of emptying trash, sanitizing restrooms, trash and dash, driving school buses on top of an already heavy workload to maintain them at a safe and level of operation, and keeping the buildings with antiquated mechanical systems running. Less students, less staff, and the same acreage of grass to mow, same square footage of buildings to clean. How has the board become so out of touch with the way its key employees are being treated? The financial crisis I'm referring to is a personal financial crisis of each blue-collar employee that they're experiencing in this district due to the suppressed wages and increased workloads. After continuing staffing reductions starting in 2017, I don't recall any maintenance positions or custodial positions being brought back, just administration. We have lost about 20% of our staffing. Admin, however, has played the shell game, moved people around and brought numbers back in positions such as assistant principals and other things, and moved into different CTE programs, created different jobs. I'd suggest that the board take a real look into what's going on in the district instead of just rolling with the biased narrative that our district often provides. And we have value. We do show up every day. Rain or shine, snow or sleet, we're here. We're the ones that everyone calls when everything doesn't work. So please consider us.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
Ketelin Venneberg. How'd I do on that? Okay.
I have the high honor of working with you in this district with Special Education Department. I want to applaud your promise to the kids in this district to with the foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We work hard to see that happen with some kids who people write off. And my question to you is, how can we teach that well when it's not being modeled in giving us affordable wages? Thank you.
Jesse Asensio.
Hi, board. I'm Jesse Asensio. I'm the head custodian of Wenatchee High School. I have many custodians underneath me as well. We do our best to make sure that we can get that high school running as well as possible, as clean as possible. And my staff go above and beyond to do everything that they can to make that massive school as clean as possible. And it is a very difficult task to do when we lost one position, so other positions had to take on more work when we lost our positions the last time around. This time, and now I have guys who are just concerned about what's going on in the school district, what kind of workloads being put more on top of them. As right now with the athletics position, we are having our guys actually do more work since the loss of Jim Beeson. So now my workers are being told to make sure that they are helping set up events when they typically wouldn't and tearing down events when they typically wouldn't. And then they have to do their run on top of all of this stuff. So I would very much appreciate if you guys would consider an increase for us all. Thank you.
There's no other public comments. If we could sneak in the ASB update real quick before presentations.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nora Dillman. I'm this year's Wenatchee High School ASB treasurer. I'm filling in for Nico Kaitis, who is this year's ASB president, who couldn't be here today. She apologizes and is looking forward to attending next month's meeting. But I'm super excited to share everything that ASB has been working on this year and what we have in store. So we started the school year with a bang. We hosted our freshman orientation, welcoming about 500 new faces to our community. Next, we put on our annual Panthers in the Park at Walla Walla, hitting record-breaking attendance. There were kids playing spike ball, volleyball, and just hanging out on the grass. It was great. Next, Senior Senate put on Senior Sunrise. The senior class enjoyed a free Red Bull making station and pastries from Yiyo's Bakery, kindly donated by the owner. Before our first Friday Night Lights, our spirit team put on a school-wide pep assembly to teach cheers to new students and get excited for that night's game. We dressed as construction workers, and ASB provided free snacks and waters to students in the student section cheering on our team. The following Friday, Wenatchee High School students saved the city as we dressed up for a Batman theme and celebrated our team taking home our first Panther win. Among other smaller events throughout the school days, Wenatchee High School ASB has had a fantastic start to the year. As for what's to come, our team is diligently planning homecoming, which is set for October 19th. And the theme is going to be Disney's Tangled And so at our next meeting, Nico is going to provide a rundown about how everything goes this month. And that's all we have for now, but thanks for listening. Go Panthers.
Thank you. Moving on now to special presentations.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here tonight as well. And thanks for the ASB update there. Tonight we have an athletic department update. Last spring, in the midst of our budget reduction process for the 24-25 school year, we looked closely at every resignation, retirement, and carefully considered what was the best move for our district at the time. And it was decided that we would temporarily have Principal Eric Anderson assume the administrative duties and responsibilities of the athletic director, along with the support of an athletic coordinator for a temporary time frame. The goal here was to work to align the high school and its athletics more holistically, create systems and structures that support academics and athletics, and build off our former athletic director's work in order to have a strong foundation when we onboard a new athletic director in the future. So tonight we have a check-in with Principal/Athletic Director Eric Anderson. Thanks for being here, Eric.
You got it, Corey. I guess I don't need to introduce myself after you talked about me right there. So, but I will say that it has been my pleasure serving in the role of the principal of Wenatchee High School for the last 9 years. And it's also been my privilege to serve as I'm going into the athletic director position here as well this year. So the dual role, a lot of work. I will say that, but also a lot of joy right now. So I'm having a lot of fun. Our kids are amazing right now. So I will say that our students are on fire. When our ASB report came up and she is talking about how creative our student body is being around our athletic events, I will just tell you that we have gotten comments from other schools like, how are you doing that? Well, that's our kids. Those are our kids that are doing that. Obviously, we're supporting that, but they're driving that work and we just love that. So I want to give them a shout out. All right, I'm going to give you, basically my slideshow is, I'm going to do a lot of talking. So there's not a whole lot. You're not going to miss much if the bullet points are really for me to kind of share in conversation. That is, I'm not giving the budget update. Okay, there we go. Good. So Yeah, we're off to a great start right now. I mean, we are excited with how things are going in the fall. We've got new coaches in our soccer program. We've got new coaches in our football program. We have a brand new coach in our swim program as well. So we're off and running right now with some new folks leading the helm in our fall athletics program, and things are going really well. So super pleased with the culture that all of our coaches are bringing to our students. And that's really kind of some of the work that I'm doing is kind of the big picture work. And I'll break that down a little bit in terms of what is, there we go. No, yeah, we're good. Okay. So kind of the delineation of the work that myself and Tammy are doing. So Tammy Giacomazzi is taken over as our athletic coordinator this year. And Tammy came on board basically August 1st. And I've been working most of the summer to try and make sure that we have things ready to go for the fall. I'm an individual who does not like to try and do things last minute and wants to do things right and wants to make sure we're not dropping a lot of balls. So we spent a lot of time this summer going through things, and this is just kind of a quick breakdown, but my role is really working on the culture of athletics, kind of the bigger picture pieces of things in athletics. I'm working with mentoring of coaches, larger budget allocation pieces, eligibility of students who transfer from other students, those types of things, going through the hearing process and walking them through that. And then really what Tammy is doing is kind of the more of the day-to-day operation piece. So she is taking on scheduling our buses. She's taking on the scheduling of fields, our game officials, individual game eligibility. So academic eligibility in the season, and then kind of nuts and bolts pieces. So, I mean, that's really what she is doing in terms of what her role is as compared to what mine is. So there's a lot of communication. She is doing a whole lot of communication with like our transportation director. I think they probably talk almost daily because there's a whole lot of moving parts, obviously, in athletics. And so she's working really closely with Jen around that work. I'm really working on the culture of athletics, and really that is, we're just trying to continue to improve, right? Like anytime, like anybody else, when we step into a new role, my goal this summer was really to kind of sit down, and even last spring, to sit down and kind of get a feel of how things were going and where are some areas that we could look at continuing to improve, asking questions, talking to coaches, what kind of supports are needed. And also just looking at kind of where we're at in terms of what our students are doing, our student body is doing with athletics. And our coaches have really gotten on board this fall, which has been fantastic. One of the conversations that we've had is really trying to look at some accountability pieces around attendance and tardies and leading in the school. And that has been fantastic. Our coaches have kind of really glued on to that, and we've had them attend. Those that could make it, not all of them could make it, but those that could attend have come to a staff meeting, got a chance to stand in front of our staff, introduce themselves so they know who is supporting our kids outside of the classroom as well, and wanting to partner with our teachers around supporting our students being successful. And so they've really got onto that. And we have kids now that I see running to class because there's some accountability on the athletic side around making sure that they're on time, making sure that they're present for class, those types of things that we're really trying to drive home, them leading that work so that we don't want to see students in uniform at our tardy kiosk. It's like, hey, we want you leading that work. We want you there early. We want you showing everybody else what this can look like. And our kids have stepped up. They've done a fantastic job. And I think that, again, that type of work is, again, the partnership with our coaches and with us and what we're trying to do as a building and culture overall. I think our coaches have done a great job. All of them are really doing a fantastic job of communicating. It's one thing that we've really asked for is that they send out weekly communication pieces. We really want them to kind of take the lead on their own individual sport piece and what's happening in their program. And we don't want parents and or athletes to be wondering, right? Like what's happening, what's going on. And so again, they've done a great job of that. I get a copy of most of those, and I get a chance to see those as those go out. And that is fantastic. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think that we're continuing to try and get better. We are not perfect. I mean, I will share that right now. We have fumbled some things along the way. We missed some communication pieces on our end. And so, yep, we'll own that. But again, we're trying to continue to get better and continue to push our programs to get better. So building connections, we're really working hard. I think that one of the things that we talked about last spring, and then I shared again with Corey this summer, was around trying to really connect our youth to our program. So really starting to look at youth athletics and kind of connecting that. And so we've really kind of created a connection with our middle schools. So our athletic teams are reaching out to our middle school programs and inviting them to be part of things. So you'll notice if you were at the football games, we have had both Pioneer and Orchard and Foothills at our football games, being a part of them, running onto the field, being there in their jersey, those types of things. Volleyball has something similar set up. So everyone's working in that direction to kind of build that feeling and that atmosphere of like, we want to be a future Panther, like a future Panther athlete. What does that look like? And so really connecting those younger sports. Also, what we're trying to do is get feedback. So we also want to hear from students. So one of the things that we have built into our system is a Qualtrics form that goes out at the end of the season. And we've struggled a little bit with that over the last couple of years of really getting some validity in that in terms of the numbers. So we weren't getting kids taking the feedback form, basically. So if we were at the end of a sport, we might have 4 or 5 students who had taken it, and it's not really giving us enough of an end value to say, hey, we're getting some really good feedback here. So we're making sure that at the end of this season, we're going to have a good feedback system from every one of our athletes, so they can be sharing with us, which gets shared with the coaches, like what are they enjoying? What are areas that they're seeing as potential deficiencies, areas that we can improve? I mean, those are the types of things that we're trying to hear so that we can continue to build and strengthen those programs. And then community meetings. I got a chance to go to a community meeting on Saturday, and I thought that was great. We listened to the members of our community who shared thoughts and concerns, and that was fantastic. I mean, I think that, again, we're always trying to hear specifics around how we can improve, because we don't want people feeling like, hey, we're heading in a certain direction, or we're not going in the direction they want us to go. We want to move in the right direction. We want to have positive athletic programs. We want a positive feeling around our programs. We want great coaches. We want great mentors. So all of that feedback is fantastic. And Saturday was no different. That was a great way of receiving some information back and some tangible ways of how we can improve and get better going forward. So we'll continue that as we move on here. Next, so some things that we're just trying to look at in terms of updates. So one of the things, what I did not realize when I got into this was how big facilities use was on our end. So, and what I mean by that is we have people who want to use our facilities all the time. And I didn't realize how much time, frankly, that was going to take. And this summer, I learned that in a hurry. So it was like, oh my goodness, we have got a lot of people. I had people who had my cell number all of a sudden, 3 days into July, texting me about using the Apple Bowl and about this and about that. And I'm going, oh my goodness. So we've got to come up with maybe a little better system about how we have access to our facilities and then the use of that. So we've really spent some time with Sean, breaking down and looking at our facilities use agreements and what that looks like, and kind of streamlining a process to make that electronic. Worked with Eastmont to look at what they were doing as well, so that our timeframes kind of matched up. We didn't want to say that our fall season was here to here and Eastmont's was way over here. We wanted to kind of align that work as well, so there was some unity in the valley. So we've had a chance to do that. Trying to create some public facing calendars. So really, again, trying to make sure that information is out there and accessible. I will just share right now that one of the struggles that we have had is our own athletic website has a calendar on it that is constantly wrong. Sorry, it has been. And so it's like, we are trying to fix that. It basically, there's some technology pieces that I won't go into, but the bottom line is it's continuing to show inaccurate information. So we're trying to clean that up, because one of the things that drives me nuts is saying, yes, we have a game on Tuesday and our website says it's on Wednesday or whatever. Like, we've got to have that really nice and tight. So we're working on that and using some additional resources to make that happen. And then some safety protocols. We have Dr. Roberts has done a fantastic job as our athletic trainer, and her team, they approached us and had a conversation earlier this summer about how do we partner with with Lifeline, was specific at that point in time around, they're interested in doing this, about updating our emergency action plan, specifically around football, and then branching into some other areas. Well, that was eye-opening. We went through a drill with them just a couple of weeks ago and really sat down and kind of looked at some of our own practices about how do we improve some safety measures around that when it comes to student injuries, those types of things. How do we move quickly in terms of getting them medical attention, communication, those types of things. So that has been great. And again, just kind of a review of how do we update those things to make sure that we're doing the best that we can. And then prioritizing communication. We talked about this a little bit, but we're trying to make sure that our weekly update that goes out is clear, is correct, it's concise, highlighting some things, but not overwhelming people sometimes with too much information. So trying to give enough information with some links to dive in a little bit deeper. And then our social media presence, it's something that we have talked about. Like, I don't think we have enough of that right now around our athletic programs. So we're using some resources in our own high school communications person to try to expand that. So that, again, we're highlighting what's coming up, we're highlighting what has happened in athletics, and really getting a chance to celebrate that. So those are things that we are continuing to work on going forward. And then last, we're really kind of trying to leverage our partnerships. So again, we have our local youth agencies, and that was something that we held our Wenatchee High School Youth Sports Spectacular. And really the design of that, or the purpose of that, was twofold. A, to develop relationships with our youth organizations in town, and B, try to connect our elementary and middle school age students to the youth athletic programs that we had. We know it's good for them to be involved. We want them involved in things. We also know that the more students that we have involved in those activities as a youth, the more students we'll have involved at the high school as well. And so again, it kind of creates that system of, we want future Panther athletes. And so how do you do that? You get kids interested in athletics and activities at a young age and continuing to move our direction. And then head and assistant coaches, this is really just building relationships with our coaches to find out what they need, make sure that we're supporting them in the ways that are best fit for them, mentoring them. And we talk about culture, kind of building those strong relationships. And the last thing is our booster club, which is on fire, by the way. I will just tell you right now, that group of individuals is on fire. They are doing a fantastic job. We've had a chance to sit down and spend a lot of time over the summer and get their feedback around like, hey, where are you seeing some things that we can improve at? And we've really taken that to heart to try and move in those directions and try and solve some of those problems and really partner with them around the things that they're doing to support our athletic programs in our system. So that has been great. We've some quick updates. We've just announced we've hired our girls basketball coach, our boys and girls wrestling coaches. So we have all of our winter coaching positions now filled and ready to go. And we'll be posting a couple spring coaching positions here coming up, and we'll get those rolling here in the next month or two. So that's where we're at currently. And I am happy with how things are going. I mean, in all reality, I think that there's a good feeling this fall in terms of the culture of our athletics and what's happening and what our coaches are doing to promote that. And so, yeah, I'm busy. I am tired, but I am feeling good about it all. So I will just say that. Okay. Questions for me?
I have one.
Go.
So I think, because I speak from experience, because being a part of the school district involving in the high school athletics, I think a deterrent for some youth is financial components of it, because it is expensive for some, like cheer as an example, parents and sometimes the student having to put forth in that money and effort to pay for those, whether it's the jackets, whatever the needs may be to participate in the sport. So if you have youth that are devoted and very committed wanting to participate, but there are some financial constraints along the way, like, hey, we do need to put money from the student involvement. How is that going to work with this? Do you work with the students and the families, or how's that looking like?
Yeah, we really try to work with each individual student around that. I mean, we don't want there to be any financial barrier to our student being involved in any of our athletic and activity programs. And so it's not always possible to to cover and assist in every dollar of cost, but I will say that we do our best with every family to make sure that we minimize those when there becomes a barrier that's in their way.
And do the student or the parents or both come to you for that, or do they go to the coach first? Or
typically it'll go through the coach. I mean, in all reality, the coach is the direct contact with them, and then they're coming to us and saying, how do we support this student in this work? And our booster club does a great job of that as well. The booster club has oh man, I just drew a blank on exactly what they're calling it. Basically, students who are struggling, like with when we go on a trip and they want to purchase, we're going to Miners on the way back from Yakima. And it's like, we want to make sure they have an opportunity to do that as well. And so they've got some funds set aside to make sure that we've got that. Again, finance is not an issue to be a part of what's happening in our athletics program.
I believe there's also I reference this House bill all the time, but I don't remember what number it is. And we saw it, I was posted both in Spanish and English in our welcome back guide. So I do appreciate that, because that's something that we are required to provide. To answer a little bit of your question and seeing it out there, maybe it's something that something that the coaches are better informed of.
Well, some of those things, I mean, we waive ASB fees for every student who qualifies for that. So I mean, we try and waive as much as we can under, is it 1662?
Thank you.
Is it? Okay, whatever you just said. Yes.
60.
So yes, I mean, ultimately we are doing our best around that. And then we're just being creative in terms of trying to make sure that we're finding outside resources to support students and families around that.
So on that, you mentioned the Booster Club. Does that carry down into middle school or is that just a high school?
Our booster club is just high school. It is now, I think that there might be a way to create a separate booster club for middle schools, but right now the charter of the Wenatchee High School Booster Club is high school. Pick this up.
Oh, did you?
I don't have a question, so I just want to say kudos. You know, having a student in the school district who plays sports, and even if he didn't play sports, I've seen a lot more this year in the month and a half in. I don't know when school started, less than a month. You know, Sports Spectacular, the athletic newsletter. I don't know if all board members get that, but as a parent, that comes into our email. A board presentation. Imagine that. And I appreciate the change in culture, engaging with the community, where the needs are. And, you know, this is something that appreciate the funnel into the middle schools and the engagement in that, because I think most of us know that the research shows that if we can get students involved in extracurricular activities, whether it's club, athletics, whatnot, they're less apt to be out joining gangs, creating trouble, etc. So I do kudos to you know, that change in culture, funnel and down to the elementary schools. I would like to see a little bit more of that booster set up for the middle schools, because I think that's where kids are so eager to try different sports, because everybody makes the team, right? Nobody's getting eliminated because they didn't make varsity JV. So kids are eager, but sometimes those resources are limited, and the bus rides back to the school, you know, stopping at McDonald's, etc. So, but yeah, no, kudos. I appreciate the work, and your tiredness is not going unseen. So
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. When we were talking about fees, one of the concerns I had just recently heard was there, and I don't know if they've been raised to you, but there's concerns about the cost structure now for using some of our facilities that are going to price out some of our clubs and programs that previously used them. Have you heard anything yet, or?
No, I haven't. I mean, when we've looked at the structure, and Sean can probably talk about this a little bit more as well, but I mean, I believe we are priced less than Eastmont, if I remember correctly, on I can't remember right now. I know that we had looked at Eastmont as kind of let's make sure that we're in line with our you know, local communities around that. And I want to say that I think it's $5 or $10 an hour for use of some of our facilities. So I would hope that wouldn't price out some of our club athletics.
And I think one of the concerns was raised was there was a base fee for the rental, but then if you needed lights or other things, then it was starting to add on. And once you started adding those things on, it became incrementally more expensive. And we probably as the board approved the price schedule, but not maybe now realizing some of the impacts and things. So I don't know if that's something you had concern, but it may be something we need to look at again, because maybe it makes sense on a one-off scale, but when you start adding those extra pieces, I've now have started to hear a little bit of concern about, hey, we're not going to be able to use that facility this summer. So
yeah, we just to fill in, Sean, Eric and I worked on a couple of different drafts, and the board actually approved 2 different versions. One went out first, and then we met with some of our user groups, and they shared some of their concerns, and we came back with another one. So we have addressed those, and we did hear some initial concerns. So we went back and took a look at those, and I feel like we have a very fair price structure right now. One of the things that we noticed is we hadn't raised our prices with our facilities in like 10 years. So we did raise them, and we raised them incrementally over the next few years, so it doesn't price people out. That's the goal. Yep.
Just to comment off of that, I think we need to be, not that we want to price anybody out, but we are a state-funded institution, and, you know, I'm not sure we're
charging for lighting, but we do have to look at the custodial impact that it's going to have by having open gym. So there's so many factors, and we're actually dealing with this at work, where I work. We hadn't increased our prices, and to rent the student rec center $50 an hour, which is a massive facility, seems very comparable to other facilities. So I just want to caution us that we are a state institution, and we can't just be giving away resources. That's where I'll leave it. But again, it's about being fiscally responsible and while meeting the needs of the community.
Yeah, and I think as we go through this year, I mean, Julie, to your point, if we look at it and we're going, hey, we're getting a lot of concern around this, and or we have groups that are really pulling back, then I think the conversation could be revisited to say, okay, what does that look like? And are we creating a barrier?
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think you answered a lot of my questions about what you're doing to grow the programs, growing through the middle schools and reaching out to clubs. I know my son is at Foothills, and he was there at the football game last week. So I think that was pretty cool to get the youth involved. I would like to see if you have maybe your PE teachers getting on board about encouraging kids in their classes to maybe try programs. I think we talked at the community meeting that, the likely sources of encouragement are going to be other athletes. And so making sure the culture is good and we're having that good experience, but it wouldn't, if we can get every resource, because not only is it such a valuable tool in their education, keeps them entertained, healthy, engaged, a lot of positive benefits for athletics, but it also, if we can build a real good program, I've been advocating, it helps with our enrollment, which helps us avoid budget issues so we can help sustain other programs. So the more we can build this program, I think it benefits not only our athletes, but also everyone, the other programs that rely on funding that we bring in from enrollment. So I just want to thank you very much for showing up to what was called the Student Athlete Advocacy Committee meeting, a random community meeting put together on about 2 days' notice that I was invited to by parents and boosters primarily. Didn't know who would be there, but Mr. Anderson and I had talked previously, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'd welcome community feedback and talking to the community." I said, "Hey, well, here's this opportunity." So I don't think either of us had any idea of what to expect, but I think it turned out to be a very good opportunity. Appreciate you being really open and receptive to that. Hearing feedback directly, some of it more helpful than others, but I know it was very much appreciated by the parents there. It was great to see some coaches as well. I think it was really great to see that you were truly invested in engaging in that conversation. So,
absolutely.
And I heard from that they want to do some more. So we'll see if that happens. I'll let you know, but I appreciate you engaging with our community.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything else.
Eric, thank you very much. I know that there's a softball game that may have already finished up, and then we have soccer games. So we
coming up. Yep.
appreciate you sliding a board meeting presentation in between your supervision duties. So we appreciate it. Thanks
You
for
got
being
it.
here.
Thanks, everybody.
Next. Okay, thank you. We will move on to our next special presentation, which is our board budget update. And I want to thank the board for this time tonight. We want to keep both the board and our community updated on the budget reduction process. So we'll be routinely providing updates and milestones along the way this fall. And we also are including in this budget update a special HVAC update as well. So I'm excited to share with you some of the things that have been going on or not going on in our buildings throughout. And I had a great conversation with Lance Coleman, our HVAC technician, about some of the items that I'm going to share tonight. So that was a good presentation, or a good time well spent. So the first part of the presentation, though, are some of the slides and information that you've seen before that we want to make sure that we're sharing with our community and the board. So we'll jump into this. Excellent. Excellent. So we have here some budget presentations to reference throughout the year. Some of these are budget updates that Sean has given. Some of them are ones that I've given, but they are referenced there for our community that may just be tuning into this conversation. And we reference those because they're far more comprehensive than the update that I'm giving here tonight. But just a few of those are, we go back as far as April 23rd. We had a June 4 presentation where Sean presented the preliminary budget presentation, the other funds, so everything except for the general fund. And then he came back on June 25th and then gave preliminary budget presentation on the general fund there specifically. And then on August 13th, came back and gave us a more comprehensive view of the entire budget. And then on the 27th, then I gave a budget update as well. So those are easy to access and reference from the website there and the school board meetings. So you can check those out. And so back to our enrollment page. Let's see here. We'll get to the enrollment slide. So this is a slide that we have been adding on to for the last few years as we experience enrollment decline here. And you can see as the numbers slide down, we have where we ended for the 23-24 school year with 6,740 students. Our 24-25 budget projections have us decreasing by about 225 students to have us at 6,498. We know already from the September count that it's not going to be that dramatic, which is good. We're excited about that. And we also know that our September count is our lowest count of the school year and our October count is the highest. So we will be waiting for that October count as the next milestone for enrollment. And Sean will come back with an updated enrollment in the consent agenda for October. And then the next slide shows it's a different graphic representation of similar numbers. And so you see the actuals there for the 2023 school year, and that top bold row is where the 6,740 students are. And then with our projected budget numbers of 6,498 there. You can also see some of the forecasting that Sean has done for the next few subsequent years with some of the demographic data that we've gotten, as well as his intricate and highly well utilized projection formula that he's created. So we've got those numbers there. And then when we talk about budgets and we talk about the long-term impacts, we know that enrollment and inflationary factors are annual issues that the district must contend with beyond the current school year. So we have to think about those in terms of projections and student enrollments moving forward. The budget is a living, breathing entity. So this is part of what makes the budget concerns evolve and continue to grow. So inflation happens every year. And with student decline does as well, we have to adjust. We also know that delaying reductions only increases that gap between enrollment decline and inflationary costs. And so this is why we work to address those as much as we could for this school year. We had a very large budget reduction for the 24-25 school year, as you all know. And larger reductions in the 24-25 school year will lessen those reductions in future years. And the bold there at the end is reductions will be needed until enrollment stabilizes. Okay, and then here is a slide that you have all seen many times. So the slide was from our April 23rd school board budget update, which shows our reductions slated for 24-25. But you also see the fund balance loss of add that in the next little bit here. The fund balance loss of a potential of $3 to $4 million that will need to be potentially reduced in the 25-26 school year if our current projections for enrollment decline hold. And we know that We did a little bit better this year, and we're excited about October 1st being even better. So we have to keep this chart in front of the board and our community. This is a chart of transparency and trust building. We have shared these statistics with our community and stakeholders since last spring, as well as the addendum to our written analysis for the possible closure of Columbia way back in February. So we want to keep these numbers in front of folks. Okay. And so when we talk about the preliminary budget reduction, we do not yet know the exact number, but it's up to $4 million, I think is the term that we're using. We have here slated $3 to $4 million. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. And we'll see these factors are on this slide deck here, but you'll also see the milestones before we get to the HVAC presentation. So the 24-25 preliminary reduction amount of $3 to $4 million is predicated on a lot of things. And the great thing about these is we can always do better. We just don't know. So we have to plan for for the realities. And so we have an enrollment, as I mentioned earlier, we're projecting a decrease of 225 student FTEs in the 24-25 school year. We know that we've done a little bit better than that so far, and that's exciting. That's good. We also know that we have some inflationary factors as well. We have the IPD, or that implicit price deflator, and that's the price index that measures the changes in the prices of goods and services produced in the U.S. Also, a number that comes from our state legislator when it comes to what we think of as cost of living increases. We also know that insurance has increased exponentially, and that is insurance for the entire district has increased 30% last year, and we budgeted for 30 this year, and it is slated to increase at least 20% as well. So those are going up. We also know that this is an interesting year for us to work toward, because we have a replacement levy that we have coming up in February. So February 11th, we'll go to the voters on a replacement levy. So we hope to pass our replacement education program and operational levy in February as well. So that also plays huge implications into our budget. And we'll have some more presentations on that. We have a presentation coming up to the board on October 8th, and then a board workshop on October 14th that revolves solely around the levy. So we'll have more information there. Let's see, our fund balance reserves. We know that we are always hoping to close the year with adding to our fund balance reserves. We know that we have to have a 5% fund balance at all times, and that is like our savings account. So we want to make sure we pay close attention to that. We also always watch our state legislative session. This year happens to be a long session, so we'll be watching it even longer than we usually do. And we'll also be working for building that budget for 100% staffing as we strive to get to that point. And then there's K-3 class size compliance pieces that we also receive funding from the state. So all of those pieces roll together to help us understand better what exactly that enrollment, or not enrollment, but what the reduction amount looks like for the 25-26 school year. And then, of course, at the bottom there, the bottom line is we're still very early in the budgeting process. And our forecast will be adjusted throughout the school year as we reach those milestones that I'll show you in just a sec. And this is a starting point. This is our best forecast. Oh, I'm going to click through all these. I'll get them up there. Yep, went too far. Okay. So these are the factors and considerations for budget reduction as we look throughout the year. And these are things that we look at annually. Alignment of staff to declining enrollment. What are our numbers and how are we basing that on our enrollment decline? We know that there are going to be some restructuring opportunities at the district office and at the cabinet level. We have some unique opportunities. We also always look at our retirements and resignation with scrutiny. So there's always areas to leverage that can help in those reductions as well. Again, looking at outside contracts for goods and services that we utilize in the district. There are always things that we can look at that can have a big impact on our budget. We had a not recommended list last year when we were talking about budget reductions for 25 and 26. We know we'll need to take a look at this list. This was a list that we were not recommending as part of last year's budget reduction process, but we know that we'll need to be taking a look at that this year. We also know that out of our budget last year, we had $2.5 million that were taken out of material, supplies, and operating costs. So we'll be looking at that again to see if there's any room or ability to claw back any of that. Again, I've mentioned the fund balance, making sure that we maintain that 5% minimum here. Salaries and bargainings will play a role. As I mentioned, that implicit price deflator or that cost of living indicator. And then, of course, meeting the milestones. And so I want to show you the milestones. Oh yeah, okay. The milestones that we have for the year, we're past the August, but that's where our budget reduction dollar amounts are set for the year. And we look at our student enrollment. But October is kind of where we are right now. So we are looking forward to the first milestone for October, which is our enrollment projections based on our count. We'll also be looking toward the close of the 23-24 school year. We can see what impacts will be on our fund balance. We can, at that point, we'll be updating preliminary budget reduction amounts and also obtaining some feedback. And then as we move into November and December, we'll have our additional stakeholder feedback opportunities. We'll be developing a preliminary budget reduction plan and how we're going to actually come up with that dollar amount. And then as January begins, we'll be looking at the state legislative budget session. In February, we'll be looking at that replacement EP&O levy on the ballot. April is our state legislative budget session ending, and May budget reductions become finalized. In June, we start the 25-26 preliminary budget. We begin the cycle all over again. So those are the milestones that we'll be looking forward to this year. See where I am here. Any questions on that stuff before I move into the HVAC maintenance information? Okay. Okay, we keep moving. This is review for you all, so I appreciate that. As I mentioned, since we're talking about budgets, and the heat seems to be sticking around this year, it was recommended that I share some of the costs associated with our aging and old HVAC equipment, since this summer has been the summer of big repairs. So I've got a variety of things to share with you, and each of them revolves around a specific school that experienced an HVAC shutdown or just time without their cooling systems. And one of the things that is challenging with most of our systems is because they are old and aging, parts are challenging to obtain. Lance, when I was talking to him, referred to the graveyard many times, and this is a place where they have old equipment that they can go and grab things from and fabricate things and weld fan blades and do all sorts of fun stuff. But he really described that the process of fixing the old and aged equipment really begins with ordering parts when you can. If not, you go to the graveyard. If not, you go to eBay or you find used parts. And if all else fails, you begin fabricating. As I mentioned, I met with Lance Coleman, one of our two HVAC technicians to talk about this work. And these men and their expertise, help save us thousands of dollars every single year, multiple thousands of dollars to keep our systems running. So I'm going to share a little bit about some of this work, and feel free to stop me or ask any questions along the way. We have two HVAC specialists in the district, Lance and Patrick. They keep things running smoothly and keep people happy and comfortable when they can. And most of the time, what normally will happen is they have things fixed and adjusted and the problem resolved before most people even know that there is a problem. And that's how they like to work and how they like to operate. They also serve as our large commercial appliance repair technicians, so ovens and dishwashers and steam wells. And Lance really talked about a collaborative approach to repair that included not only our director of maintenance and operations, but our contract specialists, outside technicians, and product support teams. Like, everyone is needed as part of this work to make things happen. Each repair that I'll describe here involves our HVAC technicians and potentially outside partners, parts suppliers, and then some district support as well along the way. Okay, so the first two, we've got the first two, Mission View. To really quantify the cost associated, I wanted you to see the number of hours that our technicians put into the work, some of the parts that are involved, or what the problems were, any outside support that's necessary, because these guys are collaborating with people all the time. And then the time that our systems were down. So Mission View, in quick summary, for the two technicians, about 16 hours, roughly 8 hours for each of the technicians. They were working together on this one. The motor had to be rebuilt there. We have an approximate cost of the motor being rebuilt, and the cooling tower needed to be repaired as well. So our outside support there was motor marked, and the time down at Mission View was about 2 weeks. That was during the time when we did have some summer school programming. So we moved students over to Lincoln for a little while. And then Newberry, and interestingly enough, Newberry was down today. It was down yesterday. It was fixed. And then this morning when the building principal got there, it was down again. So, but it was, as of 4 o'clock today, it was back up and running. And so that was great. But during the summertime, we did not lose any summer programming at Newberry, because they were able to make it work. So 6.5 hours there. The problem was that the loop was low on water. There was multiple non-functioning classrooms, and there had to be a lot of cleaning out of some of the equipment. So the time down was less than a day there. And that became, it was much more than routine maintenance, but they were able to get that working and fixed. Nope. Went backwards. Sorry. Okay. The next one, Valley Academy. So technicians, Valley Academy was down 4 different times this summer. So 25 hours collectively was the time that they put into it. The quick summary on what was happening there, it was quite a few things. So 2 units were problematic. There was a high head pressure switch there, which is, very nominal in its cost, but a lot of time and hours for these 2 gentlemen. There was a leak repair, flashing code incorrect. A lot of this, I was like, okay, Lance, thank you. There's a lot of technical terms, and I learned a lot about HVACs, but his expertise really was shining through. So new pressure switch went bad. Again, they tested all the equipment. They metered. The metering device was plugged and blocked both cooling and heating. So the outside support that they used is tech support from the actual factory technicians, and the downtime there was off and on for multiple days. It took multiple tries to get this working consistently so that they could have some consistent cooling there.
Corey, does that include what happened at the start of the school year as well, or is that just the summer?
That does include what happened right after Labor Day on that Tuesday. It was hot there as well. So that was part of these ongoing problems. And so since then, they feel like it's been consistently moving in the right direction. Right. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So and then what we think of as the big building, like, holy cow. The high school has lots of stuff here. And there was just too many hours for Lance to even quantify on how much time they spent up there. And we spent the most time probably talking about Wenatchee High School and Orchard, just because of the consistent ongoing concerns there. So parts, we have the parts for the 3 compressors have been ordered. And they run about $13,000 a piece. We know that they don't make new ones. So these are reconditioned ones. So there are 15 of these on top of the high school. I did not realize that there were that many of those. Each has 2 fans, and each vibrates constantly and creates leaks, and what Lance referred to as micro leaks. And even a micro leak can drain all of your coolant out over time, which is very expensive to lose that. And so he said it's a constant struggle. He likened it to to a car. He was telling me that the compressor over the CTE wing is like a 4-cylinder engine. The world languages is like a 6-cylinder engine. And he likened it to like these things are running constantly year round. The building's 50 years old. You know, cars, when they get to 300,000 miles, they've usually they live their life. And so he was trying to impress upon me what we all know is that these are beyond useful life. The outside work here, working with multiple companies to obtain parts. Some of the folks that we've worked with in the past have been able to obtain parts and help us with some of the installation. And some of those sources are drying up a little bit. So we're just able to obtain parts from some folks, and then we have to outsource the help and support that are necessary. Lance shared that some of the other things that are involved in the cost will be the lift and disposal of the old equipment. And then of course the crane to lift the new equipment, which we remember from 2022 as we were lifting 3 new units on top of Wenatchee High School as well. So, so that's a little bit on WHS. Okay, so Orchard, again, another situation where there was too many hours to quantify. We were running on one of 2 circuits. The motor starter went bad. There were 4 leaks in circuit 1. Circuit 2 was running with 2 small leaks, controller issues. And then the technical part of things is when they're not sending out proper signals to the chiller. Parts availability are scarce. That's the same old story here. Is it's really challenging to find parts for these aging equipment. But here are some numbers. So $5,000 for the drive, $28,000 for the chiller, another $20,000 for parts. And this particular chiller runs on old refrigerant, which evidently costs a fortune. But if we were to replace the entire system, it would be $400,000. Outside support here, cooling equipment was brought into Orchard Middle School, as you all know, from Renton. We've had lots of time with technicians and controlling companies, and also controller companies, sorry. And then there'll need to be some upgrading of the software when our parts eventually do come in. These were shipped on September 9th, and we are anxiously awaiting their arrival. So we can get the systems up and running.
Quick question, does the 28,000 then cover that cost of bringing the cooling equipment from Renton, or is
Nope.
that projected in here?
Mm-mm.
Do we know what that was?
It was, let's see. So we reach a month on Tuesday. It's how long they've been here. Sorry, of how long they've been here.
Because it's still there.
Still, oh yeah,
Yep.
it's smoking hot in there. I just did a walkthrough today as well. Classrooms in the mid to high 80s as well, and areas that they are cooling. But they're just not able to keep up. And so it is definitely supporting the students in the classrooms, but there are some areas we've had to move some of the systems around from the gym and the cafeteria to cool some of the other areas. So for the most part, if you're in a classroom and you've got one of the in units, you're going to be okay. But if you go to the library, you might be a little warm. Cafeteria is a little bit warm. The hallways don't have units in them. So, but yeah, we reach a month on Tuesday, and I think that we're probably going to need to go a couple more weeks. And so that number is going to be, it'll be expensive. It'll be probably 29,000 for that. They have 40, I think they have 42 units. Yep. Okay. Wrong way. The takeaways here, our technicians are highly qualified and keep our systems running the best they can. The impact is not always the cost of the parts, but the impact of time on the technician's day. And then I just kind of I wrote this out there, how comfortable, or how do we quantify the cost of learning for uncomfortable students and staff? And then a typo there, but this clearly describes the importance of our long-range facilities planning committee, which will meet again on October 9th as we continue the work on what does the long-range facilities plan look like for the Wenatchee School District for the next 5 and 10 years. And that is the presentation on the HVAC situation. So I wanted to give you all an update there and let you know where we were with some of our equipment. So let me change here. So any questions or clarifications? Each one of those slides is a concern, so I know that. But anything else I can share with you? That was a good ask. I know, I want to apologize.
I do have a comment.
Thank you.
I think you mentioned the long-term facilities committee, but I think it would be a good idea to have a dimensioned analysis of what we've got from an engineering point of view. And this is not necessarily correct, but the sort of thing that I would think might work was one scenario is we are going to fix things as they break. What's likely to happen? What are we going to have to do? Basically the way it's working right now.
Mhm.
The next one would be that we are not going to do major rebuilding for say 5+ years, and therefore it might be worthwhile making something like the $400,000 item at Orchard that you mentioned,
Mhm.
kind of, is there a middle road where a certain amount of capital investment is done from the capital fund? Can we find money for that? And it would be a bridge, hopefully something that could be used or resold or taken even on a rental basis. I'm just imagining all of those scenarios, but do an engineering analysis. This is not a plan.
Right.
This is what these animals look like. And then the third one would be, we know that the state has their energy efficient system with penalties and money and subsidies. And that would be part and parcel of major renovations of all the school district buildings. And under those scenario, would any of the existing systems still function? How would they function? Would you start from scratch? If you started from like a greenfield site, doing it that way, what would it look like?
Mhm.
And you might want to compare the operating cost versus the capital cost.
Right.
All of this is called a blue sky numbering, but I think it would be very helpful to do to the extent that we can, and it's not easy, but it'll be, approximate, get an idea. Maybe those aren't the right 3 scenarios, but something like that so that we can see different pathways and begin to think about what the facilities committee could do, what the district could do, what the money can do, and what the students can suffer.
I appreciate that. And I think a good spot for us to begin is those the preliminary scoping assessments that were done from McDonald Miller, because they are not the investment grade audits, but they have a ton of information and really reasonable, not reasonable, they're very expensive, but they have great approximations of the costs that are for each one of our buildings in the district. So that'd be a good place to start with that, because we have data on that. So thanks, Martin. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So I don't think there's any action or discussion tonight. So moving on to the superintendent report.
All right. All right, let's do this. So I wanted to give you all an update on our students from Columbia who have transitioned to new schools respectively. And so I met with each of the principals of the schools here. So at Washington, the enrollment at Washington for September is 547 students. We have 4 classrooms at all grade levels except kindergarten, which only has 3 classrooms. With that additional space, Washington has a new transition to kindergarten classroom, which is going well. All but 2 of the classrooms are at or below contracted class sizes based on the information that Kelly gave us earlier in the month. According to Jessica, morning drop-off is running smoothly, afternoon pickup is running smoothly, and you probably remember that Castle Rock Early Learning Center adjusted their start and end times of their day just so that parking lot wouldn't be as congested as it could be, and it was with both schools operating on the exact same schedule. So that's been helping. Washington is working on lots of intentional belonging strategies and activities for both staff and students because they have new staff that they're welcoming in as well. The goal is for everyone to be safe and feel connected. Jessica said the main office has been busier. But she feels that having familiar faces in the main office, such as the family advocate from Columbia, Nancy, has been helping to support families and students. Their PTA has a great deal of family-oriented activities planned for the fall and to help folks feel connected. Principal Bryant did say that there are some struggles with some student behavior at Washington, and mostly because Washington has that larger concentration of students with disabilities that they are working with in their elementary schools. So they're experiencing a little bit of a spike there, but Heidi and Kelly and I were there to observe today, and I think we have some help and support for them. So. And then at Lincoln, I met with Principal Stuber. I was able to actually watch and hang out with Principal Stuber as he was greeting students in about a week ago on Monday. The enrollment there is about 600. There are 4 classes per grade level, and we know we have a large 5th grade class that has 5 classrooms. The numbers there will be more balanced in following years as we graduate that large 5th grade class, and we project to see some smaller kindergarten classes. All but one of their classrooms are at or below contracted class sizes based on the information that we got earlier. Morning drop-off appears to be running smoothly. As I mentioned, I was there. We were able to greet students as they were coming in the front and going right into the cafeteria to get breakfast before the bell. But they have a couple of different entrances. So the busing students, they have 7 buses. So the buses come in behind the school. So I'll need to, next time I'm there, I'll check that out because I was only on one side of the building. What Principal Stuber did share though is there's a lot of new right now at Lincoln, and he's talking about his, him as a leader, the size of the building, the number of students, the combination of our students who are getting to know each other and becoming one new student body, the staff and their systems and processes. There's a lot of new, but he said the overall vibe is headed in the right direction and folks are optimistic according to him. So that was good. And then we do have some new students at Mission View as well. So Mission View received 25 or so students from Columbia. Their enrollment is up at 483, which is about 40 students over our budgeted projections. So they also added a TK classroom. So they have 2 full classrooms this year. They're experiencing some increased behavior as well at the moment. But as Principal Jager says that everyone just needs to be mission viewized. And I was like, okay, that will happen over a course of time then. And so, so he said there's some unexpected and increased behavior and some unexpected potty training situations as well. So I'm like, oh, okay. But he said the flow of the building and the pickup and drop off are going according to plan. So just some real stuff right there. To add on, I was just going to share some of the things that it was great to have Eric here earlier, but share some of the stats from the athletic communication that is coming out on Sundays. Just cross country and the Wenatchee invite. It sounds like our girls took first place, which is fantastic. Boys came in 3rd. There was 1,300 runners. That's incredible. Slow pitch is 4-2 overall and 2-2 in league play. And they hosted Eisenhower tonight and traveled to Moses Lake on Thursday. And I just want to add, I don't know if Eric said it, October 8th. I'm saying it, October 8th. We're playing at the new softball complex. That's going to happen. I walked it again last night with our project manager, and even though it's a little bit behind, it sure looks good and it'll sure be fantastic. They were laying cement as we were walking through last night about 5:30. So our girls swim and dive had their first league meet in Moses Lake. Their next meet is October 3rd at Davis. Girls soccer, you want to tell the stats, but they are doing really well, right?
They are 5-1, 2-0 in league play, and they have a game tonight against Moses Lake at the Apple Bowl. So I'm running over there right after this.
We're going to get you there. Football grabbed their first victory, as many of you know, last week, 42-21 over Eisenhower. Volleyball remains undefeated, bringing their record of 4-0 with wins over Linden and West Valley, and they'll take on Moses Lake, Eisenhower, and travel to Spokane for a tournament. So that's good stuff there. I think that's it for the superintendent's report. Thank you.
New board communication started this.
Well, it's the start of a new year, so we've had the first meeting of the Superintendent's Advisory Council that I like to sit in, and they're going to spend half new students a lot of time thinking deeply about how they can help shape what we do with student voice in the future. So that's one committee meeting. The Parent Advisory Committee for Migrant and Bilingual Education had their first board meeting last week, and they're having another one this week, I think, getting ready for the first event. And that's a start for the year. Budget Committee met for the first time. And the only thing I want to say about that is you've seen the scenario. There's 11 months till August next year. But I think it's really important the Budget Committee is looking and ready to react promptly, to measure promptly, and to think clearly. We have a 4-year plan. We're going to call it a 4-year projection that was part of this year's August budget. What's that going to compare to, and how's it going to work? Early start is really, really important. And I guess last meeting, I spent a lot of time talking about partnerships, and there's all sorts of partnerships happening around the community right now. Students involved with the community, the school district using facilities and joining in with the community. I'm not going to talk about any of them, but I was at 4 events this last week, and it's nice to get home sometimes.
I got to go with the 3rd graders to Rocky Reach Dam and tour that facility. And it was, I did it with my now 6th grader 3 years ago. And it is a much bigger production now. It was really fun, really cool to see all the different booths that are out, and all the kids seem to have a really good time. I chased them around for a couple hours. So that was great.
So this last weekend was the WASDA General Assembly that we sat on in the board workshop. That was actually a Friday and a Saturday event. It was, the last round we had, out of the a little over 200 school districts, we had 148 participate as a voting delegate, which was really, really great. So for those that don't know, not just the legislative rep, I am part of our district area, which is covering Chelan, Douglas, Grant, and Okanagan County, and all of the school districts in that region. And 11 of our schools in our particular region got the opportunity and participate. So it's great to see everyone virtually and in person. So what we had done is that, we went over 50 different WASDA policies, from the governance, capital projects, funding, governance, and WASDA bylaws. We knocked it all out. We did a collaborative effort and voted on what we'll pass on for us to prioritize to bring into the long session come January. And we will the legislative reps and DA reps will get together in 2 weeks, prioritizing what will be presented to Olympia in January. And so I encourage, it's the list of what was discussed is should be posted between today and next week on the WASDA website. So if the board can review that and express what would be a priority for our district specifically to be addressed, I can relay that to our committee in 2 weeks. So that would be appreciative. But yeah, no, everything is going really smoothly, and also relaying the message. The voting, so each of our district areas election, the filing window had closed last Monday, and voting starts October. So it's encouraged for all of our school members and our entire state to vote on our new legislative resolutions committee and nominating committees to represent for WASDA. So that is that report.
Don't forget to vote for Miranda, have to be our District 7 legislative person, because she put her name in the hat again. I don't have much other than, big shout out to Fiestas Mexicanas, although they didn't happen on Wenatchee School District property. They have the partnership continues. Corey was there and did his speech. Alfonso was there, Mr. Lopez and myself and a couple other school district representatives. That was a busy weekend for us. And then the following day, we were also supporting the local community partnership with our soccer league, also with Mr. Lopez, celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that's all I have. Oh, and I did see you walking around with Rob. I was hoping Rob would be at this meeting. And I was a little disappointed he's not here, but we'll trust the October 8th date.
All right, I just have a few things. I also participated in the budget committee meeting this last week to get an early start on the budget. So I appreciate your presentation reflected what we talked at that meeting. I also attended the Chelan County Leadership Meeting with Corey last Friday, where we had taken a couple months break, but now we're getting back together where we meet with the local officials, mayors and electeds and whatnot from various entities in Chelan County, talk about their projects. They get to brag about all the money they have. But they did make some good suggestions of who we can get in front of for support, who's coming into the valley and whatnot. So some good ideas, some good partnerships to look into forming both for the district as a whole, but to get our students engaged with some projects to work with them. And then I also, Eric mentioned it, kind of this strange ad hoc little parent committee put together, some of the parents boosters put together a little athletic advocacy meeting on Saturday at Rotary Park. They invited me to participate. I extended the invitation with Corey's blessing to Eric to go out there and hear firsthand some of the thoughts, since we're in this year of new regime and rebuilding athletics. Kind of a lot of concern of what does that look like when you're an athletic director splitting time with a school, and how does that prioritize, and this being a levy year and whatnot, just getting out ahead of what some of the concerns are. Very good feedback at that meeting. I could see Eric took it very seriously. We had one of the big concerns that was raised was coaching, hiring, and timely doing that. And it was fantastic to see that those comments obviously triggered some additional action. And so we got some new coaches hired this week, which was, I think, great. Not saying it was necessarily because of that meeting, but I think, he was saying 2 weeks, and then I think it encouraged him to up that timeline. So I appreciate that he even showed up, but that there was some positive things taken out of that. And I think the community felt heard by that, really. So they expressed an interest in doing it again, and I may invite one of you, if I get, assuming you'll get invited again, I may invite someone else who might be interested in athletics. But Eric mentioned that he'd be happy to do that, and we'd kind of streamline a little bit to, if it gets bigger, try to find a way to make it so as many voices get heard and so it's as productive as possible. But it was great to see just kind of an ad hoc community effort and ways to strategize and work together. And so that's all I've got. There is nothing else, then I will adjourn and run to a soccer game.
Yeah, we'll get you to sign some.
All right. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.